Hello, Cardano community. Eric here with the Smart Contract Audit Token. First, I want to say thank you so much to everyone who voted to fund us in round 6. We are so proud to be part of this community and are committed to building something great for your investment. To everyone who didn't vote for us, I hate you. Just kidding. We respect your skepticism and hope to make you a believer in the coming months. I created this short presentation to outline our tentative plan of how we would like to audit Project Catalyst going forward. We believe it is fair to the dev teams in not creating too much of a burden while also ensuring that community funds are well spent. Let's get into it. So when it comes to auditing, it's always good to start with the risks. What's the risk that we're trying to audit against? What are we trying to protect? What are we trying to keep safe? So when it comes to Project Catalyst, what would we say are the biggest risks that we're looking at? A lot of people would say that's teams submitting proposals that they never intend to build, teams spending funds on personal expenses, essentially just teams never producing anything of value from the community's investment. This all boils down to the same risk, misappropriation of assets, which is accountant speak for stealing. So you're probably thinking, Eric, I've been wondering the same thing. All these teams that are getting funding through Catalyst, how are we making sure that they're actually building what they say they're going to be building? It's a common question, and it's a fair question. So how do we mitigate this risk that people are just going to be taking funds and not building anything of value? You follow the money. We can eliminate practically all potential fraud in Catalyst through periodic expense monitoring. Teams who never intended to build something will not want to spend money on business expenses. Teams spending money on personal expenses would be exposed. Teams simply transferring funds to personal wallets would also be exposed. Through Catalyst, funding is paid monthly. You don't get a lump sum. It's paid, each month you get a little bit more. So if we go through and we're monitoring expenses and making sure that they're accurate, you keep getting funding. If you monitor it and people are not spending money on legitimate business expenses, you can stop being paid. So now hopefully everyone understands why tracking these expenses makes sense and keeps everyone accountable. But now you might be thinking, what about tracking progress? People aren't only interested in these projects spending money appropriately, they also care about that the teams are making progress towards launching a product or service. Well, tracking spending is essentially the same thing as tracking progress. You cannot bring your vision into reality without spending money. Trust me, over the last few months working on this stuff is expensive. It's hard to do much without spending money on what you're working on. So if we're reviewing these expenses and we see teams are spending money on hiring programmers, paying for server space, consulting with legal or tax experts, and things of that nature, I would say that that is the highest level of assurance that we can possibly obtain that these teams are making progress. If teams have not spent a dime of their funding, I would say that is pretty strong evidence that they have not made much progress and possibly suggest the risk that they plan on simply pocketing it. So you can see by monitoring expenses, we can not only ensure teams are spending funds appropriately, but also obtain direct evidence of the progress they are making. Okay, so how does this all work? Each quarter, every 3 months, all teams receiving funding submit all business expense support to a Dropbox. Teams are expected to maintain a spending wallet where all project expenses are paid out of. All expenses submitted are reconciled against the wallet to ensure everything is accounted for. Business expense support is reviewed, analyzed, and assessed for reasonableness. We can reach out to the teams if follow-up is required, so if we were looking at expenses and it didn't make sense, we could reach out to them for explanations. Results are tabulated, shared with the dev teams first to allow an opportunity for them to refute or disagree with the findings, and then shared with the rest of the community. And to my fellow funded Catalyst cohort members, I can feel your anger that we're creating more work for you to do. Well, I propose that doing this quarterly can drastically reduce or replace the current bi-monthly reporting that we're already doing. So in order to get this done, we're going to need to work closely with Project Catalyst to implement a few changes and grant us the authority to do this work. We need to include record-keeping requirements for teams winning Catalyst funding. Specifically, that detailed receipts for all business expenses should be retained to support spending. We need to include a requirement that all teams provide expense support each quarter. We need to be granted authority to ask follow-up questions when required. With this information, we can assess if teams are spending money on legitimate business expenses. So that's it. Thanks for taking the time to listen to this. I'd just like to say that this is a community effort, so please let us know your thoughts, and if you have any ideas to make it even better, we'd love to hear them. Thanks again for all your support. We'll continue providing updates as things progress.